Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Let me know if I'm coming in chat. Okay. Talk a little bit about my new setup here, but hopefully you're all doing well. May hear a little bit in the background, but anyways, hopefully you're all doing well. Nice to see you all. It is Tuesday night, and it is Shipyard time. It is Shipyard time. Again, nice to see everybody. So, what is going on today? Well, it is a little bit of a random chat sort of day, but primarily this stream is kind of the big test stream for my new computer. Okay, so let's hope this goes okay. It's nice to see everybody, though. I see a lot of greetings in there. Oh, 07 to you all. Great to have everybody piling in. 32 over on Twitch and 54 on YouTube. Thank you so much. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, trying to get that average viewer number as high as possible on Twitch. So if you're watching on YouTube, but you also have a Twitch account, pop it up over there too. Would really appreciate that. It does go a long way. So yeah, we're going to be talking about the whole series tonight. We're going to talk about the railing, the ironclad, cargo in general. So we're going to be talking about a lot of things that were, slight echo sound in mic. Okay, let me check that. Want to make sure nothing is wrong. Okay, how does the mic sound to everybody else? Let's do a quick mic check before we go. Echo and sound from Rusty. It says slight echo and sound. Do you have two? Do I have, let me see. I might have audio playing somewhere else. Stand by. I'm muted everywhere. Let me know. Rough Gaming says 5x5. Getting some other people says sounds good. Okay. Everything's set up properly. So my lovely wife just walked by, everybody. But everything... my beautiful, lovely wife just walked by. She's doing me favors already tonight, and she's trying to do her own stuff. So let's real quick talk. Yes, we are going to talk about the whole series. We're going to talk about sort of everything that was going on in the ship discussion show during IAE. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. If any of you are hearing any audio things, I do apologize. Again, this is a new setup. So what's going on with the computer? As many of you... Gasoline Moth says Krista's the Drake fan. Yes, absolutely. As many of you know, my computer was dying. I did not make that any sort of secret. Well, last weekend on Saturday, it finally died. It kicked the bucket. Well, it didn't die, but it just did not want to. It just did not want to stay turned on and running. It kept auto shutting down. Host of issues. So I had to get a new machine. Did that, got a nice machine, got a Ryzen 9950 X3D, and then on the GPU side, got a NVIDIA 5090 OC Founders Edition. So we're looking good. Got in before a lot of those price hikes, but since I was buying from a builder, I was buying from Origin Systems. I didn't have to go through, I didn't have to sort of pay extra for the RAM, but it is crazy what is happening with RAM right now. So Bunkerfist says 5090 big spender. Well, actually, I have to have this stuff for my job. So I do visual effects for film and television, and I need the raw horsepower for rendering and stuff. So, yes. So anyways, we got a new machine. We're up and running. Not everything is working. Not all the STARJUMP stuff is even totally working. I was hoping to get that done before the stream tonight. I also have a massive transfer going on that's going to take quite a while. I was hoping that would have been done before we started the stream, but it's not possible. So that being said, we're going to try to trudge through this today. Again, apologies if there's any issues in the stream. I know you will all be understanding of sort of the setup. I do expect that the setup will probably take me until Sunday next week to get fully built back up. That includes my work stuff, STARJUMP stuff, and everything in between. So again, thank you for the patience. Next thing I want to address right out the gate, because I know some people are asking, someone asked over on YouTube earlier on, where are the new ships for STARJUMP Fleet Viewer? Where are they? So I'll go ahead and give you. So to update everyone on the status of the new ships for Fleet Viewer, here's the status. So many of you don't know this if you haven't been following STARJUMP for very long. I'm actually going to bring something up and share it with you all, so bear with me. I'm going to bring that up. Let me share my screen here. Hopefully this works. Okay, so many of you don't know that there is a pipeline for Fleet Viewer, right? So the ships have to run through a series of steps before they actually get onto the live site so that you all can use them. Okay, so there is a defined pipeline. It is different for concept ships versus flight ready ships. We're talking flight ready ships now because we're talking about those IAE ships. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to kind of walk you through that so everyone can kind of get refreshed on the process that is required to get these ships into Fleet Viewer, because it's not. Thank you, honey. Thank you very much. Actually, I don't need that. Sure? Thank you. Yes, I'm good. Thank you. I got a drink. My awesome daughter helping me out. So what is the process? Well, we're just going to talk about flight ready again tonight. And you can see that down here. Flight ready ships requires the use of StarFab and Blender. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll go fast forward through the concept ships here. We're going to go straight to flight ready. The first step on the flight ready pipeline is that they have to get exported via StarFab. Okay, that is something VMXEO does. If you all know VMXEO, make sure you give them an 07. By the way, thank you for the follow, Citizen. Appreciate that. And the resubscribe up focus. G43GX, thank you for that follow. But the ships have to run through the StarFab pipeline. That is not as easy as you think. There's things that have to sort of be rebuilt. Sometimes textures have to be converted, etc. Genetana says, StarFab, is that a CIG tool? No, it is a fan-made tool created by VMXEO, James Stormtrooper, and Ventivar, but it is a really powerful tool and one that CIG has looked at. So either way, it has to go through the StarFab process, okay? That is complicated. I'll give you a good example of the complications there. When you open something like the Paladin and StarFab, the turret doesn't just pop into place. When you first open it up in StarFab or convert it via StarFab, it's got no turret, it's got no side guns, it's got no armament. Sometimes it's missing doors and ramps and other features, okay? Which is obviously not going to look very good in Fleet Viewer. After you bring it up and you find it in StarFab and all that kind of stuff, you then need to import and convert that to Blender. That requires a blueprint assembly conversion out of StarFab and into Blender. Again, that is a process, right? Next is VMXEO has to go through and make any modeling and texture fixes that are required. Sometimes it does require manipulating the rig on the ship. For example, some of the ships come in with their landing gears down or their wings folded or whatever. So that does require someone to go in and manually adjust that. Very important. Next thing is to do the lighting. We have a preset lighting set up for STARJUMP Fleet Viewer. All the lights are positioned in a certain way so that there's a consistency across all the ships. So that's a part of the process. Next here, we go to step 5, which is render and conform. That's where the stuff is handed over to me. Part of the render and conform pass is to crop all the images in a very sort of special way. And that cropping is what determines, or is one of the factors that determines their scale when Starlit takes them to integrate them into Fleet Viewer. Why do we take that into account? Because when you spawn your ships in Fleet Viewer, you want them to be scale accurate across each other, right? So that's part of that process. D Moore, thank you for the follow. And then exporting the PNGs for that for all 4 angles, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes there are some lighting adjustments and stuff like that. And then obviously after I do that, do my part, this now includes doing metadata such as SCU, crew capacity, all that stuff. It is pushed to Starlit for integration. With integration, I'm just going to let this play, but there's a lot of steps involved with the Starlet getting that. There's file organization, naming conventions, all that kind of stuff. We have to do image scaling, okay? So that way you can do low, medium, and high resolutions on your scaling for Fleet Viewer. This allows the app to run efficiently, even when viewing large fleets. I know some of you love Fleet Viewer for that very specific attribute to it. Then comes the CDN hashing part of it, which is generating those MD5 hashes for each processed image. This enabling aggressive CDN caching and version control. This again is all stuff Starlet deals with on Fleet Viewer side of things. And this is why the integrated site is not, or integrated phase is not just pushing it live. There's steps here, right? Then we do assembly and configuration. We combine those hash files into a sort of final deployment structure. Again, handled by the amazing Starlet. I'm just going to skip ahead here. We do final scale calculations. Again, these are a step me and Starlet take, and we do this manually to adjust the ships, make any fine-tune adjustments to make sure their scale is appropriate. This is a lot harder than you think, actually. And then finally, after all that, the ships can be pushed live, okay? So as you see, quite a few steps, right? But the next part of that is if you have a lot of ships, like there were at IAE, which I think we had, how many ships did we have at IAE? 6? I think we had 6 ships. Take those 6 ships, plus VMXEO did a new Zeus ES and a Zeus CL, new renders for that, so that's 8, right? So that whole process that I just walked you through times 8, right? So a lot. And then However, I know you've all been waiting very patiently. Starlet does have all the files, so we're in the Starlet phase of this. VMXEO's part's done, my part's done. Starlet's now integrating. Here's the good news, though. Here's the good news. I know some of you will be excited for this. We know you are all being patient. We wanted to do something for Fleet Viewer that will make a lot of you happy. So we have another ship coming to Fleet Viewer with this update that will probably solve some of your problems. I know that some of you have had when generating your fleets, and it's this image, or sorry, it's this ship right here. Yes, we're finally putting the F7CM Heartseeker Mark II Hornet into Fleet Viewer so that when you do the kit, right? So when you do the kit for that ship or the kit upgrade, it should spawn the Heartseeker Hornet, okay? I've had a ton of requests for this. As a matter of fact, it's probably the #1 request we get for Fleet Viewer is to get this operating. So big shout out to VMXEO for pushing out these extra renders. We have one fix that we have to do with that, but we're working on it. So yes, long requested Mark II Heartseeker. Even though it's not a ship technically, it's a kit. We are going to bring it to Fleet Viewer. In addition to that, I am going to be pushing Idris versions soon, not with this update, but pretty soon, so that you can have either the Idris M, the Idris P, the Idris K, or the Idris T. You can have them all done. We'll have all their modules done. That is something we're working on as well. So hopefully that makes everyone happy. Again, we do appreciate the patience. They are coming. We're a little behind, I guess you'd say, but they are coming. I promise. Next thing I want to get to real quick, Drake Golem giveaway. CIG has been generous enough to send me a Drake Golem game package with LTI to celebrate Luminalia. So we'll be giving that away. The giveaway does start now. You will notice a Gleam link posted in chat there and pinned to the top of Twitch and YouTube chats. All you got to do is go to that Gleam link and boom, you can enter to win that. I'll be giving that away not tonight, but next Tuesday. Okay, next Tuesday. But here's the important thing, though. Here's the important thing. Okay, here's the important thing. I'm using a platform that captures every 15 minutes. It takes a snapshot of who is watching live on YouTube and Twitch. Okay. And for those of you that are watching the streams, not only this week, including tonight, but all the way through Invictus next year. Okay, so the more streams you watch, the more this is going to affect you. Deboost, thank you for that follow. You will get extra tickets. So every stream that you watch 50% of the way, you get an extra ticket. If you watch it 100% of the way, you get 2 extra tickets for the entry. Okay, for the Drake Golem for this week. Okay, but here's the big thing. Between now and Invictus, every stream you watch, at least 50% of the stream, you will get an extra entry added to the Drake Ironclad giveaway that we'll give away at Invictus, okay, in May. Now, that giveaway hasn't started, but I am tracking who's watching the streams via that platform. So just by being here, not doing anything, you are getting extra tickets in the Ironclad giveaway, okay? That's for Invictus. You're also going to get those same bonus entries for the Galaxy giveaway at IAE. So stay tuned for that. Okay, it's happening. But use the Gleam links to get in on the Golem giveaway. One more thing before we get into the ships. One more thing. Want to shout out the sponsors of the show, of course. We have Icon City. Make sure you go check them out. Use the code STARJUMP for a discount there. They do have Star Citizen icon packs, all that kind of good stuff. So make sure you get in on that. And then, of course, Pigeon Spaceport, the makers of the really cool Scorpius models. You can use the code STARJUMP there as well, okay, to get in on that discount. As a matter of fact, do I have a special discount link? Let me look for that real quick. But again, these are ABS injected. They're really, really nice if you haven't checked them out already. They do really, really good work. Let me see if I do have a link. I do have a link. Just a second here. Let me grab it. Yes, this link right here should get you, I'll post it right in chat. This link right here should get you to the StarJump page where you can use the code there and get in on that. Okay, so we've got through all of our top of show announcements. We can finally move on to the thing we're talking about today, which is the whole series, okay? As many of you know, real quick too, I am running the chat bot. So if you do question and then ask your question, if you type the word question, then ask your question, the chat bot will pick it up. We will get the questions here in a little bit. Big shout out to Piggles for still allowing me to test it. It's going really well. I think he's in the final stages of getting ready to make that a real product. So, by the way, drinking coffee out of my Texas Space Navy mug. Thank you, Mud Dog. Appreciate you. All right, here we go. Macro Holler says, so I collect extra tickets for the Ironclad and Galaxy at the same time? Yep, you do. Just by being here. You don't have to do anything. Automatically snapshotting the people viewing chat, okay? Or viewing the stream. And you're getting tickets added via that platform once the giveaway goes live. Because it's all saved in an Excel sheet. It's an Excel sheet, okay? Glassword says, question, I'm listening to your stream rather than listening because I'm cooking. Yes, as long as the stream's up and you're listening, you're good, buddy. You're good. All right. As you know, during IAE, there was a lots of ship talk featuring John Crew. I'm obviously tired. John Crew, Ben Curtis, and Mark Gibson. Okay. 3 ship people we probably see the most of. They did a talk with Jared. They went over a lot of stuff. Yes, on Twitch and YouTube, Caldoon. They went over a lot of stuff. There was a lot of stuff they specifically didn't talk about, which was rather interesting. But one of the things that was discussed was cargo capacities on ships, okay? Specifically related to the Raylan, the Hull B, Hull D, and Hull E, as well as the Ironclad and Ironclad Assault. And personally, It was actually Starshifter asked a good question. Starshifter says, question, so if we double stream both YouTube and Twitch, do we get extra? Yes, you do, because there's no way I can prevent it, because people can have different usernames across them. So yes, unfortunately, is what it is. And everyone, let me know if the streams are doing okay. I'm getting some unstableness, but hopefully it's okay. But anyway, lots of cargo changes. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch a little bit of that. Okay, we're going to listen to what they have to say. It's not very long. It's only a minute, about 5 minutes or so. We'll listen to specifically what they said, and then we're going to sort of break down some of these cargo changes and sort of figure out if, because I've heard a lot that people consider these nerfs, and I get it. I actually get the argument. It's very clear, but I actually want to sort of reframe it. Not that I always want to white knight CIG. Those of you that watch this stream know that I will criticize them when it needs to be done, but I want to look at these changes in terms of how I think that they are probably a buff to these ships and actually a positive thing overall. Okay. So real quick here, I am going to throw my headphones on so I can hear the video, and we will listen to what they have to say. Here we go.
New cargo capacity changes recently. The raft, which was a
Oops,
big
let me
surprise.
switch this over.
I didn't even know about that until it went live, and I'm like, what?
This guy just...
and then a few more coming up in the future with the whole series. The Raylan, which we managed to sneak in there with a little hologram thing, as well as an announcement that it's coming in 2026, which was nice. And I hear even cargo changes to the Ironclad are probably in order.
Yep.
Real quick. Someone in chat, Falcon DS9 says, quick question. How long does it usually take you to add new ships to Fleet Viewer tool? Looking for a Starship 42 replacement, but your tool is missing many ships. Nope. Fleet Viewer is not missing any ships. As a matter of fact, we have more ships than Starship 42 had. We have every flight ready ship except for the IAE ships, and those are coming within a day or two. But no, we have every ship in Fleet Viewer. If you're looking at something else, that is not Fleet Viewer. So yeah, we're not missing any.
What can you tell us about these?
Yeah. Let's start with the whole series. They were concepted back
2015.
15
By the great Jim Martin.
by the great Jim Martin. Back then, they were everyone's favorite measurement of cargo, freight units.
How many FUs a ship
They had
had?
so many FUs. And they got converted to SEUs. And as we brought the whole series to the game, the whole C actually, I think, kept at its original
Pretty
SE
close.
conversion rate. The hull A was 48 at concept, but we increased that to 64. Again, cargo metrics in our game solidified over the years. It didn't make sense to do this weird 48 because it didn't nicely fit in with the size cargo crates we have in the game. And as part of that, we decided that we want 32 SEU containers to be our largest container in the game.
Let's pause right there 1 second, everybody. That's a very key thing he just said, right? Which is that they want the 32 SEU cargo container to be the largest container, essentially the largest container in Star Citizen. Now, this was, in my opinion, a pretty big deal. In chat, you maybe can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I don't think they've ever said that before, because I think in the past we had assumed that there would eventually be a 64 SCU container, a 128 SCU container, a 256 SCU container, and so on and so forth. So knowing that currently they're planning on 34 SCU to be the biggest SCU capacity, the reason that I wanted to pause this and talk about that a minute is that is the new standard by which we need to consider all these cargo changes. So if you're someone out there that was really bummed that these ships got nerfed, the whole D&E especially, oops, 1 second, everybody, I'm getting a weird, bear with me. if you're bummed at the fact that those ships are getting nerfed, I think if you think about this in terms of the 32 SCU cargo crate being the biggest and the roll-on effects of that, remember, not just carrying that cargo, but things like space station building, right? Before, we didn't know how much cargo it was going to take to build a space station. We still don't. But what we do know is that that will be built around that the resource requirements for that will be built around the 32 SCU cargo container. So what that means is a space station probably is not going to require 4 million SCU of cargo, right? Because that would just be insane with 32 SCU crates. It's probably going to be a lot lower than that, okay? We won't speculate on that, on what those numbers would be, but we'll see there. Falcon DS9 says, I was specifically looking for the new Wolf and Clipper. Might have been the wrong ships to judge. No, so Falcon, that's a good question. Don't worry, you're all good. This is all the IAE ships. So the Clipper, the Wolf, the Galamox, all those, they're all done. They'll be pushed to Fleet Viewer. It literally should be either tomorrow or the next day. They're in Starlet's hands. She's working on them, but they are coming. I do promise. Let's keep going on this, though.
There's not going to be like a magical 64, 128, 256 one, and that sort of has knock-ons for the whole D&E. But I want to talk about the whole B first, in that we've been working on that, and that was 384 SCU concept. It's now going to be 512, and it can still land with the cargo fully on, planet side, and you can get in and out of it as an important thing.
So Hull B, that's the first ship we need to consider here. We're going to go ahead and go over to Fleet Viewer real quick. I want to talk about the Hull B real quick, okay? Let's go ahead and bring the Hull B in. And yes, we will update these stats for Fleet Viewer, by the way. We'll do that here when we do this IAE push, okay? Let me go to cargo capacity. Original cargo capacity being 384. Now that is being adjusted to 5. What did he say? Let's go back a second.
And that was 384 SCU concept. It's now going to be 512.
Okay, so 512. Let's go ahead and we'll put new, and we'll do 512 SCU, okay? New is 512 SCU for the Hull B. We're going to do this for the other ships, and I want to kind of see where the cargo is now stacking on them. Again, some big number changes here, okay?
And it can still land with the cargo fully on, planet side, and you can get in and out of it as an important thing. There was a lot of finagling to get that to fit.
We don't have images, and I want to be clear, we don't have images because Ben gave them to me and I forgot to load them up. So you can blame me. But essentially, it went from this to like this in order to...
Yeah. It should be a concept art, Shard.
Yeah.
That's that, and
I
then
paint pictures with words.
Yeah.
slightly longer, but still with.
Ender says it sounds like they're doing hard drive sizes. That's right,
It was
buddy.
a little bit of a headache, but we tried a lot of different things, but yeah, we got there at the end. So yeah.
Well, it'll be all right. It'll be a nice reveal when it comes, and you're working on it now. So that's all we'll say about that one.
Yes, Hero, the Hull B model will be
Did you just say
updated to the flight ready
2026?
model
Yeah.
once we have
If
it.
we're doing this, let's go.
All right. Yeah, the Hull B is coming in 2026 too.
Should we just list them all, John?
No.
No silhouettes this year. We're doing this instead.
Yeah, I got a question about the silhouettes. Talk to me about the railing.
Raylan, 320 to 640. People have.
Okay, so let's go to the next ship they're discussing here. Another big one. Okay, Raylan, very popular ship. That is changing to 640 SCU. So again, pretty big jump there. SCU. That is a doubling of the cargo for that ship. Okay, Malkiri, nice to see you. Okay, so not quite double for the Hull B, but the Raylan receiving a doubling of the cargo capacity, okay? And the reason this is important is it changes where these ships land from a price standpoint, okay? And we are going to get to the prices here in a minute. Okay, let's keep going.
I've seen the hologram in the halls and seen a lot of comments about the triangles missing.
Yeah. So
It's not It's fake news.
Yeah, it's not. So the hologram was based off of the game we have in the model we have in game at the moment. We are currently working out exactly what we're going to do with the cargo on it in terms of I want to keep the aesthetics there. I want to keep it as close as we can to the original concept, but I also want to make sure that it works. And like I say, we don't want to end up with these weird shaped kind of cargo containers. So we're trying a few different things. Haven't nailed it down in concept yet. It's kind of in the next couple of weeks we'll start looking at it, but it will support kind of just standard cargo metrics. We will keep the kind of like the visuals of these triangles. They may be like a frame that kind of clasps around it and holds it and kind of moves out of the way. There may be little end caps. Not sure exactly, but it was just a case of we haven't fully resolved that yet.
Okay, real quick on that one. Some of you will remember I did a stream where I talked about the new holo model for the Raylan. And some people will remember I said, well, they took off all the boxes, the whole rear end's changed. Well, it turns out they were off visually, but they're supposed to be on. The important thing here is that there have been some Raylan changes. There's been some integrated thrusters added to the nacelles and other features like that. Again, we'll talk more about that once we get more info on what the Raylan's new design looks like. Sorry, does the video volume need to come up a little bit? I'll boost it a little bit. Here we go.
So that's why it's not on there.
Okay.
But it is.
Yeah.
That is still the plan.
Won't go back to the D&E because I forgot to go back to them.
I was going to go back after
Okay.
we did the Iron 2, but you can do it now. We'll sandwich some bad news in with the good news.
Whole D&E owners sit down because this is going to sound like bad news, but it's
That's right.
it's the news.
You look right at your camera there. There you
one's
go.
this one?
Yep. Nope. Give him the John Crew camera.
Move out the way.
Give him the bad news camera.
Zoom in.
All the way. Your cargo capacity is going quite a long way down. So the D, and I've got my notes here, is going down to 6,912 SCU, which is a lot of SCU.
Okay, so let's pause there. 6,912. We're going to add the whole D real quick here. Now, if you all remember, the whole D was, let me just move some ships out of the way here. The whole D was a lot. So let's zoom in here. Okay, so the new SCU for that is 6,912 SCU. If you remember, the original cargo capacity of the ship was somewhere in the 20,000 SCU range. So that is obviously a massive reduction, going from 20,736 SCU all the way down to 6,912 SCU. Although this number here, again, I want you to keep in mind, while CIG listed it as SCU, they're saying in the video that was referring to its FU numbers. I'm not saying FU to all of you fine viewers, but FU meaning the freight units, okay? But so keep that in mind for a minute, okay? So that's the whole D. The whole D is the one I own, by the way. We'll keep going.
And the E is going down to 12,288 SCU. So
12,288. So let's slide on over to our friend the whole E, and it is 12,298, right? 12,200. As a matter of fact, I can check that real quick here. Yeah, 12,288. Okay, 12,288. Okay. Now that's a big reduction as well. Remember, the whole E was originally 98,304 freight units, being brought down to 12,288 SCU of cargo. Okay. Again, big reductions in SCU capacity. Now, real quick here, I'm going to add 2 more ships because they're important to this discussion. All right, so we're going to bring down our good friends, the Ironclad and Ironclad Assault. We are going to bring up their cargo capacities as well. We'll get to these in just a minute. So we're going to do some math here in a minute, but let's keep going on the video for a second.
gut reaction, that's a big drop from, I think, 98,000, and I can't remember what the D was.
Yeah.
But for years, people quite rightly said, this is going to be so boring. I don't want to sit and load 3,000 plus 32 SU containers
I thought so,
by
Bunker.
hand, or even in an org.
Yeah.
Economy-wise,
Lysian, thanks for the follow.
huge concerns. And then performance-wise, also huge concerns. So whilst they have on paper gone down by a big percentage, they are still
The top of the
the
game.
absolute top. And we have no plans currently to have any ships that get anywhere near those. Like, I can't think of one that actually beats the whole sea at this point in terms of cargo capacity.
Let's hold it there on that comment. By the way, everyone, Debaus, Ominous, Klaus, Cyberfunk, thank you for those follows. Really appreciate you all. Again, love this community. That was important what he just said there, okay? And this is probably the biggest, without saying anything negative, this is probably the biggest, like, I don't believe you statement, right? Where John says this is currently the biggest planned cargo ship. Now that I think is true. I don't think they are currently planning a cargo ship bigger than these. But if you're asking me in the future, will there be a ship that can do up to these numbers? Then I think there will be, for sure, by other manufacturers. Specifically, the Hull C at 4,608 SCU of cargo, I do think we'll get a competitor at some point. The Kraken's close-ish, not like real close, but close-ish. I could see us eventually getting that Crusader cargo ship, the one known as the Jupiter. We could get the Crusader Jupiter at some point. If we do get that, I think the Jupiter will play somewhere in the Hull D range, so somewhere around that 6,000 SCU cargo. But again, that's a ship we don't know a lot about. We've had a little bit of it in lore, but we don't know like a ton about the Crusader Jupiter. Let's continue on just a little bit.
Capacity, so the D&E is still the cream of the crop. Their role remains unchanged as the bulk and super carriers. They're just, their SU comes down to more reasonable levels.
Yeah.
I'd genuinely be curious to see how long it would take to load a Hull E with the original numbers. Like, hand on heart, genuinely curious how long it would take to put that many 32 SUs on it.
Yeah, and we looked at the concept meshes of it, and there's some quirks. They basically add extra spindle for the D and then for the E, but the scaling's all like off, and there was just no way we could even get to those numbers with the current actual cargo metrics. Like, the spindles would have had to have like quadrupled in size.
Yeah.
As it was.
I think proportionally
becoming,
would look
proportionally
interesting.
Yeah.
So we're going to pause it there for a minute, okay? I'm going to switch back over to Hanger Link here. Now, the actually, chat, help me out real quick. Well, you know what? Let me go back to the video real quick. Let me just look real quick here. Bear with me, chat. Bear with me. I'm looking for some information.
News then.
Oh, we're going to skip ahead to the Ironclad.
Talking about cars.
Yes, so
Actually, let's do this part
that's
real quick.
obviously in production. Again, monthly reports, backlog ships are always mentioned in there. We don't keep them a secret. Ironclad cargo capacity, both of them going up. So the base Ironclad was 1,536.
1536.
1536. That's going up to 2,204, and the
So let's enter that. So base Ironclad going up to 2,204 SCU, okay, over its original 1536. So that is a substantial increase. It's almost 700 SCU more than it was planned to carry. That's like a Caterpillar, or more, it's more than it's like a C2 Hercules, more of cargo that it can carry. Okay, that's a massive jump. I don't think there's been as much attention on this bit of news as I originally thought there was. Remember, the Ironclad at 1536 with an increase to 2204, that's like a 33% increase in its cargo capacity, right? Maybe even a little bit more. Maybe even a little bit more than 33%, right? But it's somewhere around there. That's a lot of increase. And now a lot of people think that means the ship has grown, but we're going to get to that. Let's continue on.
assaults going from 1152 to 1440.
I see why you got notes now.
Yeah,
This
1440. Okay, for the assault. So again, I want to get these straight from the horse's mouth here. 1440 SCU. So the ironclad assault now going from 1,152 up to 1,440. Not as big of a jump, but I want to look at something. There were people that originally chose the base ironclad specifically because of that cargo capacity getting close to 1,500 SCU is the biggest one. Well, now, as long as you were wanting to hit in that region, you could still go the assault now, and you're carrying, and with the new cargo capacity, you're almost carrying that amount, which is pretty incredible. Okay, again, big cargo jumps here. We're going to circle back to the hull series real quick though, because I do think it's important to sort of slice these up again. We are going to come back to the railing. We're going to come back to the ironclads, but we're going to look at the hull series. Okay, I'm going to bring up the hull A. Yes, if you're wondering, I do want to get the hull A with its spindles extended. We haven't done that yet. And then let's bring up the hull C. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and lock our canvas. So actually unlock our canvas. Let's spread our ships out a little bit here so we can get a nice... What we want to do here is sort of look at this progression ladder, okay? So we're going to bring up cargo capacities for all. Okay. Here we go. Hull A, it's, did I turn this off? Why is it off? Unlock, select all. Okay, there we go. Sorry. Hull A, which is our smallest, our entry level. This is the freight starter coming at 64 SCU. Now, what competes with this? What are you, what are your options here when you're playing at this cargo level? Obviously, it's really between this and the Golem Ox, okay? The differences between the two, by the way, the differences between the two is that one has an interior and cannot carry 32 SCU crates. The other is, oops, 1 second. Stand by. The other does not have an interior, but can carry 32 SCU crates. Now, they both carry 64 SCU in total, but your two options there are between the Hull A and the Golem Ox, okay, when you're playing at that 64 SCU cargo capacity. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me actually, 1 second, everybody. Okay. Next, we move to the hull B. Okay, it was 384 SCU of cargo. Now that it carries 512 SCU of cargo. Okay, let me bring up the old calculator here. It's time to do some math. Okay, so we're going to take the 512 SCU. We're going to divide that by 32, assuming it carries 32 SCU crates, which we do assume, and that leads for 16 32 SCU crates. We imagine it still has the 4 spindles because they're shaped in the X. You divide that by 4 spindles, and that means you're going to have 4 32 SCU crates on each spindle. Much like you see here, except for those are going to be rotated into an X form. Now, some people have asked, how is it going to land with that configuration? The way it will land with that configuration, in my opinion, is when it does go to land, your crosses are going to change and flatten out a little bit, or the bottom spindles are going to move up while the top ones stay at their current X shape. The bottom ones will move up to make way for a landing gear. Again, we'll have to see, but that's what's happening there. Now, the important thing to know with the hull B, and this is kind of interesting, I'm going to add another ship here. We're going to add the Starlancer Max, and then we're going to add the Caterpillar for a minute here, okay? All right, let me zoom out so we can grab those two ships. Okay. And we are going to get to questions, everybody. I am going to get to questions, don't worry. All right, so let's check something out here. The Starlancer Max, which at its size of 83 meters long. You would think a ship of that scale that's focusing on cargo capacity, again, with its spinal mounted cargo rack, would be able to carry anywhere near the amounts a small ship like the Hull B or even the Caterpillar can carry, but it doesn't even come close, right? So 224 SCU of cargo. Many people will know I've had complaints. Hey, Griffin, hope you're doing well. Everybody give Griffin an 07. Absolutely amazing person. But, and actually, real quick here, because we have to do it real quick, everybody. See if I do this right. Yeah, there you go. Give a shout out to the Soul Citizens. Make sure you give the Soul Citizens a little bit of that STARJUMP love. Do appreciate it. But the Starlancer Mac, it's a ship you would think plays in this cargo regime. You would think it does. At its scale, again, of 83 meters. And that's the biggest thing about the Starlancer Max that I think was ultimately a mistake. I think they should have foregone some of the habitation areas and stuff and built the ship's interior to carry more cargo. This ship really, in my opinion, should have been playing in that 400 to 500 SCU range, but it doesn't, which is a problem. I see Lemming in chat. I know Lemming's had probably more conversations with Execute than he'd like to admit about this very problem. That's what puts the Starlancer Max in such a weird place, right? Jason, thank you very much, buddy. Appreciate it. It's what puts the Starlancer Max in such a weird place, and one of the reasons many of us think that Max shouldn't be in the name, because if you're following the logic from the Freelancer series, you think it carries more cargo, but it really doesn't, right? It's an RP ship through and through. Okay, so let's throw the Starlancer Max away. Okay. The only reason I spawned that is because you would think it has something to do in this conversation, but it doesn't. So that kind of leaves you with two other ships. Actually, let me bring this up. C2. Let's bring up the C2 Hercules real quick. And again, yes, I know there is the M2 Hercules. Well, you know what? We'll bring up the M2 as well. Let's go ahead and bring up that as well, because viable, ultimately, both viable contenders here. So we're going to put the cargo capacities up for both of these. All right. So C2 Hercules at 696. M2 Hercules at 468. Again, that's where that Starlancer Max should have been playing from a cargo standpoint. Caterpillar at 576 SCU. Now, I want you to look at something with all three of these ships here. And hopefully you can see them okay. All three of these ships here. 94 meters long for the Hercules. 111 meters long for the Caterpillar. Right? These are big ships. These are squarely in the large category. Right? Squarely in the large category of ships. Hey, everybody, there's VMXEO. Make sure you give VMXEO an 07. All of you asking, where are the new ships? VMXEO did all the hard work to get them out and did the Heartseeker. So give him a little bit of love for that. Now it's in Starlit hands. Make sure you go give VMXEO a little bit of love via his coffee link, please. He does a lot to support what you all love in StarJump Fleet Viewer. So again, make sure you give him a little bit of love. Lemmy says, StarJump, pretty sure M2 is wrong in Fleet Viewer. It may be. If it's wrong in Fleet Viewer, let me know. What's the M2's? Is it 522? Okay, then I need to have that down on my list of things to fix. 1 second. Let me grab that. Is it 522 SCU on the Hercules? Let me know, chat. Here's where I'm going with this, though. Let's say it is 522, because that actually is even better. That's even better for this discussion. You have these ships that are squarely in the large category, and now you're going to have the option with the Hull B, at least at its current concepted length of 49 meters. I think that could grow a little bit, at 512 SCU. So you're now going down to a ship that is, it straddles that line between medium and large, right? At its current concepted length, it's about the length of a mole, right? An Argo molt. A ship that size, being able to play in the freight regime, the SCU regime of something like the Caterpillar is pretty incredible. Okay. So that's a big boost to the hull B. Some of you will remember CIG talked about the prices for some of these ships going up after IAE. Well, extrapolate that. Okay. What's the, again, we're doing some research on this one. We're doing some research on this one here, everyone. Okay. Caterpillar, its current standalone price is $330, I believe. $330, $295 war bond, right? So what does that mean for the hull B? Well, let's do a little bit of math here. So currently, what's the pledge price for the hull B? Does anyone have that information up? I thought I had it up, but I guess I don't. Do I not have the hull B ready? What was the hull B this IAE, everybody? Was it $90? Oh, is it? It's higher now. Okay, so I'm seeing 140. I'm seeing 140. Okay, yeah, 140. I think the 140s are right. Okay. So 140 for the hull B, but remember, it can play in the freight regime that the Caterpillar can at 330. Okay, now the Caterpillar, much bigger ship, obviously. Yep, of course. It's got some additional features. It's modular, command module and stuff like that. But where do we think that hull B price is going to jump to? Any guesses, chat? Anyone in chat want to take a guess on where we think that price is going to land? I can tell you what I think it's going to do. I think that ship is going to fall. I think it's going to be somewhere around $240 to $260 when it's out the door. $240 to $260. It looks like that's where a lot of you are thinking as well. $240 to $260. I think that's a pretty safe bet. I think the ship is going to be a slightly grown up hull A, right? A slightly grown up hull A, and we'll obviously have an interior, etc. But I still think it's going to be kind of a no-frills ship and going to be really built around getting cargo on and off quick. And with those exterior spindles, you'll be able to load the cargo on quickly. I think this is going to be a solid buy. If you're sitting there trying to figure out if you should buy this or the Caterpillar or like a C2 or something, this has a lot going for it. And yes, I know the C2 carries more cargo, but again, when you start, price, ease of getting cargo on and off and stuff, the hull B becomes a very, very, very attractive ship. Real quick here. Infrarush says, hey, can me and Algrid come on? You probably can. How do I get you on? That's the question, because let me look here. Stand by. You know what? We have the general channel in Starstream. We have the general channel in Starstream if you want to jump in there. I think Algrid and Execute, I think you're both in the Starstream. Piggles is Discord. But yeah, I think that's the attractive thing about the hull B, and I think that's what really makes it special, right? It's a ship that I was not interested in the least. But now I think if you are a cargo runner of any type, and that is something you're interested in, you really cannot ignore this ship. You really can't. I think it's one that you have to sort of pay attention to when you're factoring all those things: cost, ease of operation, right? It really just becomes one of those ships that you can't ignore. Now, obviously, the price is going to be the big sticker here.
Hello.
But hey, Algrid, hope you're doing well. How are you, buddy?
I'm fair.
We were on your Discord, in your waiting room. We were all ready to go.
Oh, were you over there? Oh, which
waiting.
Discord waiting room were you in?
The red one.
Oh, the red one. Okay, yes. Well, we can go over there if you want, or we can stay here. It doesn't
No,
matter.
no, no. We're good. I don't
Okay.
think anyone else has access here anyway,
Okay.
except Art's here as well. But that's about it. Yeah, Art and Space tomorrow. That's about it.
Yeah.
20 people have been jumping here.
But yeah, I don't know if you guys are hearing me, but like, I mean, I really think the hull B, when you start factoring in its cargo capacity against those other ships, and by the way, everyone, you're hearing Execute and Algrid from the Info Runners. But when you factor in all that and factor in the price jump, and let's say it does jump quite a bit, I think it's hard to ignore this ship. It almost becomes like a must buy if you're serious at all about doing cargo.
Well, when we talked about them at the sales, we basically recommended pick up a couple. Like I picked up a couple of these. I picked up a couple of the Raelian. Obviously the Hull A and the Raft probably not so much. I probably should have picked a couple of the Raft ones up, but I didn't.
Yeah.
But the Hull A, I'm not expecting. I don't know. Basically, the bigger the ship goes, the more cargo, the bigger the jump, right? So more price of shippy go up. It's pretty basic.
Yeah, and I could see this not being the Caterpillar's price point because the Caterpillar is modular. It does got the command module, which can disconnect. But let's say the hull B goes from 140, 150, wherever it's at. Let's say it jumps $100, right? Or whatever, or even slightly more. Let's say it goes to that 260 range. I still think you're getting a steal, $260 for carrying 512 SEU of cargo. Again, when you compare it to the C2 and stuff, it's going to be a ship to look out for.
It is exactly like it appears on the image you've got there on Hangar Link. It is still the 1232 SU cargo containers.
Yep.
So it more than likely is going to be four sets of four, sorry, like you've got there on your screen. And they just said it's turned on its side to an X.
Yeah.
It's the deciding factor, I think, is really, you and I talked about it briefly. And I know we talked with Chris about it briefly, but it's on his stream, is just how those landing gear are essentially going to work with that X configuration.
Yeah.
Has the ships itself got like fatter and it surrounds more of the X, so to speak? So have they made them shorter? Have they made them double decks? They're the type of questions I have. That's the last little mystery.
Yeah, I'm assuming, and because I can't see you guys, if you want to say something, just interject, obviously. But I'm assuming that when it goes into a landed mode, I'm thinking the two struts that on the X that are pointed downward, I'm assuming those manipulate up slightly just to make room for a landing gear. Maybe there's some actuation there. I don't know how much clearance is involved, of course, but knowing how tall, 4 stacked 32 SU crates are, I would imagine some articulation there.
Well, it's even like you said, is the landing gear essentially built into the X configuration and it just lands on those two bottom struts?
Right. We talked about that. Right. Yeah. And what we're talking about there, chat, is that if you have your X cargo spindles in the shape of that X, the two bottom spindles would have sort of built-in landing gear skis or sleds. So with it,
it's time for MS Paint. Bring out MS Paint. Come on, draw me a picture with your crayons. I want to see it. Let's go.
The sad thing is we probably could 3Dify this thing real quick. We might be able to do that. I'll have to see if it runs. By the way, everyone, again, thank you for the patience. I'm running a really interesting setup tonight with my new computer.
You're on your new PC.
I am on the new PC. I'm on the new PC, and it's so far going really well. But, it is a new computer.
Noticing the power then? The power?
Yeah, much more.
I did say
much more power
would give you a big kick.
Yeah, so I'm on a 9950 X3D and a 5090 GPU. So running hard. I'll actually switch over real quick to the I'm just going to switch over to my main monitor here, which is not it. Stand by. Where is it? Oh, there it is. This here, everyone, again, being the hull B. What you're going to see, I think I actually have the struts on their own group here. We'll take a look, but we may be able to visualize what that mostly looks like. Let me just group this stuff. But yeah, while I'm doing this, any other thoughts on the hull B?
Well, one of the things like this does for the hull B is if you were trying to get the cargo, and as we suggested at times when we were trying to think how to do it, is expand, add 2 panels instead of 1 panel.
Yeah.
You were effectively increasing the length of the ship. By turning these at diagonals, the ship still keeps its compact small size, and that's a bonus.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It's just that, like as I said, it's just that it's still so far off the ground. So how are they going to do that? And the only way I can think of doing it is essentially making the ship fatter. So
Yeah.
that or really long legs.
Mhm.
You know.
yeah.
And everyone, you should
And
be able to
I-
see here that X configuration that we're thinking that they're talking about here. Go ahead, Alex.
And
I want to see an
I
execute
can't
skin
see
for this.
in
by
terms
the
of what
way.
you were talking about, in terms of maybe the bottom has a bit of articulation. I
Mhm.
can't see there's too much room for those bottom ones that articulate even up slightly. It's just
Yeah.
What he was suggesting when we talked about it, see how you've got like the panels on the outside.
I was wondering if they
Adrian,
kind of
is you-
move up, but yeah. go ahead.
you could literally have like landing gear on the outside and they kind of like just fall down and land on it. Or even if you think about it, say you filled in that bottom triangle
Yeah.
and that was more solid or frame like, and that's where the landing gear was.
I shared
So
my
it's
screen,
literally landing on the spindle.
Yeah.
Oh shit, just ran that'll make
Yeah.
it better. I'd have to wait 25 seconds before I can see what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
now obviously I don't have these spindles rigged to move, but what you can see here, as I was wondering if this spindle down here though, now just imagine the spindle attached to the cargo, but imagine when it goes to land, this spindle just like slides up something like that, where the cargo does go higher, which then makes the gears not have to go as low.
Yeah.
Now again, it would require the
All right,
entire
yeah.
spindle to move. That's probably some complicated ass animation, but if you've ever
What if
seen the whole sea, it's got complicated animation.
What if you just have it so the 2 spindles just turn up? So all the spindles just rotate. So if you even had the top 2 ones rotate so they're closer together, and then the bottom 2 rotate up, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's very possible. I mean, there's a lot they can do there. I mean, here's one thing we do know about the whole series, especially with the whole sea, is CIG is not afraid to do some complicated animations, right? So I think they'll come up with something. If I had to guess, the landing gears are probably not going to be like crazy stilts or anything. I do think there's going to be some sort of articulation there.
Well, how many ships had those over the years? Like I just keep thinking of the 300 series. Do you remember how long they used to be? And that thing barely
even
sits
the,
just above the ground now.
Right.
the classic ship that
the
used to
carrack.
have the long legs was the carrack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It looked like a grasshopper.
Right.
So I can't see them doing that because
It generally makes a ship unstable to land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to turn.
But I tell you, I could
spindle off.
I could see your idea, Rex, of skids.
It wasn't my idea. It was Grimm's. 100%. I'm not going to steal
I
his
could
idea.
see that idea
but I
of landing
liked it.
skids on those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thinking there, everyone, was that imagine if you had some sort of landing skid. I'm just doing a box here for that sake. And that skid was sort of permanently mounted on the bottom of these spindles on their sort of on that axis there.
base.
Yeah. And then those would sort of be permanent landing gears when the spindles are deployed. Now, the tricky thing there is if the spindles do retract, like the other Hull series ships do, are you losing the landing gears then? And then does it have backups? I'm not 100%
Well,
sure. But
See, that there is very much like a constellationless.
yeah,
It is a lot, actually. It is a lot.
In which case, and those landing gear on the Constellation do retract and do apply. And I could see these even rotating up to the side if you had those rotating to the side outside of those on the back side of the pad, and then sliding out when you were into landing mode, if you were doing that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point.
Isn't
I'll
there
go ahead.
a picture? I was just isn't there a picture somewhere of its current landing gear? Because that may give us a little bit of
The last one I saw the Hull B is it had kind of long leg sort of landing gears.
It's the most insectoid of the three, though, isn't it?
And-
from memory.
Yeah, and I want to point out to everyone in chat, if you're looking at this model you're seeing of the Hull B right now, this is like original concept model here. This is from the Hollow. This is the current Hollow model. This will undoubtedly change. This is obviously not going to be the flight ready design, but just important to keep that in mind.
I just sent you
Here we go.
Sent you
Yeah.
that image if you want to show it. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
you know that you can see there's a very insect vibe going on there with
Yeah.
this one, way more than the others.
Yeah.
But again, those legs are a massive slant. And again, what would you say, that half the body width off the ground at most?
Yeah.
You go back and look at what you've got mocked up there, it's almost the full length of the ship off the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. It's much higher.
Or
So
height.
it just makes you think that there's got to be some sort of complex articulation with those spindles. The other thing, everybody, with the spindles is back in these original concepts, they would have these plates on the exterior of the hull series ships. They have since removed that as being a thing. They removed it from the hull C. They removed it from the hull A. I'm positive it's going to be removed from the ship as well. So you won't have to worry about that panel. The panel's more on the inside now, and that's the grav plate that you connect the boxes to. So.
Okay, I've got a really weird theory. I've just been
Yeah.
sitting here in my head trying to think of how you could do it, right? If you had it, so you know how it's like one spindle and they all fold around the one pole. Can you imagine if there was two poles, but it was like two letter C's? So one top set of boxes, one bottom set of boxes, but because they're on two poles, the poles can rotate.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially you rotate so the top two boxes go horizontally next to each other, which brings the two next boxes up. I really can't articulate that properly without drawing it in front of me. But
Yeah, I see what
I'll
you
draw you
mean,
an
though.
image. Yeah, do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So if it had two poles instead of one, and then they just essentially rotate, because they're slightly further apart, you'd be able to rotate the two, so the two top ones become like right next to each other,
Yeah.
which then would bring the two bottom ones up, so they're also horizontal, but the almost completely equal with the bottom level of the ship, which would then allow it to land. So I think the flight mode is X, but I think a landing mode, they have to, it's just too high. And
Yeah.
the easiest way, rather than move the whole ship or make the ship fatter or bigger, which requires a massive drastic rework, just make it so the spindles can move.
Yeah, I'm going to turn off the spindles here just for a minute so we can just visualize the cargo there in X form. You can see that here, everyone. Again, the sort of what we're talking about here is you have your cargo like this in flight ready mode, but when you do go to land, you would have, this spindle kind of articulate up, and maybe it goes flush with this one, or maybe they go all the way up, who knows, but let's say it goes flush with this one, just to keep things symmetrical. And then the same thing with this
moving
one.
it. I think it's a rotation, so the cargo doesn't move at all.
It could
just
be a rotation,
rotates.
yeah, it could be a
So
rotation.
you don't technically need two poles, but I basically said if there was two poles, it would just allow each of them to rotate. But you could essentially just have the spindles rotate left and right, or
Yeah.
both go vertically up.
But-
and again, if you think of it like two L's, if the two L's are on a diagonal at the center point, when you rotate them up, it goes from an X shape to basically an upside down T shape from the front.
Yeah. I
If
mean,
that makes sense.
it does, yeah. And if you look, I mean, we're just kind of wildly changing some cargo here. I'm not being super delicate with it here. Let me just switch something here. But let's say that, here's the thing. They never said either that it was a symmetrical X shape. I mean, maybe it is,
True.
but it could be even something crazy like this that we're seeing, where it's not quite a symmetrical X, but still technically an X shape,
Yeah.
although it's probably
That's
symmetrical.
true.
But again, that would
Well,
bring that flight
technically-
height down.
If you look at it right now, it isn't really symmetrical. One of them is the cargo is slightly separated, and the other is like really close. If you look at it, it is actually different, even in its current configuration.
So again, there's some options here. There's definitely some options. But I want to get back to sort of the main point of discussion about the, this ship is that it's really, in my mind, really difficult to beat the, the price. Again, considering it will go up, the cargo capacity. Right now, the ship is listed as a medium, and I think it's 49 meters long, which is like, I mean, if it goes like another meter, isn't it technically a large at that point?
Would you say how long? How long? again?
49 meters long.
49.
And listed
That's
as a
already-
medium.
That's already a large. 41 is the cutoff.
Unless it's still like medium size, whatever number of components it is, we don't know. But
So what usually happens when I looked at the whole series in the past is when it's compacted, it's one size smaller than what it is when it's uncompacted. So originally when they had the different size jump points, it means you could go through the jump point when you were on your way back with an empty cargo, but then you had to go around when you were full.
Yeah. And real quick here, who was it in chat? Naughty Beaver says, you guys are missing. He specifically said it's getting quite a bit longer. I actually did not hear him say that in the video. If you can let me know the timestamp, Naughty, I'll rewatch it. But I watched it a few times. I never heard him say that the whole B is getting longer. Now, I could be wrong. I've been brain dead many times watching the video, but I don't remember he said it. Drift Runner says he said it. Okay, cool. Maybe he did say it. So let's say it does get quite a bit longer. Let's go on that. And it goes into that quote unquote large category, right? Okay. A couple people are saying he says it. So let's say it goes into firmly the large category of ship. Again, remember that the Caterpillar and the C2 are 90 and 111 meters respectively. This can grow quite a bit. And I bet some of that length is just the extension with the spindles out. It can go quite a bit. The issue is that it's still a much more convenient ship than those because it's carrying its cargo on the outside, so it's going to be easier to load, easier to offload, but still play in the same cargo regime and probably be not half the cost, but significantly less, right?
Well, the fact that it can land with its cargo is still the massive bonus, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like easy to access the cargo, but it can land with a large amount. So it just does what the whole sea can't. In many ways, it's ideal for doing that transport slot. And yet, yes, you've got other ships that can do that, but again, when you've got to open a cargo bay, pull the stuff out of a cargo bay, having it on the outside makes it significantly easier to take the cargo off.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Makes you also think of the relationship between the Cyan too, with how their alien kind of does things as well.
Yep.
So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And thank you for the follow, Daddy Shark. Appreciate it. So here's the funny thing though about the whole series. Is again, it's the jumps. And I think CIG has kind of worked out what those jumps are just from a ratio standpoint. But, you go from 64 with the A to 512 with the B, pretty significant jump, right? I don't know exactly what the ratio is there, but significant. And then from the whole B, you're going from 512 to 4,608 on the C, right? And, up from that, we're moving to the next one, which is the whole D at 6,912, which you can kind of round that to be almost 7,000. So again, a significant jump all the way up to the whole E. I mean, we could still talk about the whole B, but I guess I want to kind of talk about the whole D and E as well before we get to some questions on these. But like, the idea behind this episode was sort of to reframe the discussion of these ships being nerfed, because I've had a lot of people message me over the last week saying, hey, what do you think of the whole nerf? Are you disappointed? Because a lot of people know I own the whole D. And I really, and again, I'm not white knighting CIG when I say this, because I would definitely say if I didn't like this change, CIG is not sending me any paychecks anytime soon. So I would say if I didn't like it, but I actually look at these changes as a positive for the ships. They become to me something that can actually, first off, function in the game, which is positive.
Right. Well, that's what you and I talked about, didn't I, when I was on your show
Yeah.
last week or whatever?
Yeah. So it works in the game, but then it also, again, you have to extrapolate the 32 SCU cargo crate, the amount that these ships carry across what the other expectations in the game were. For example, if CIG is eyeballing a space station, I'm just going to use some round numbers here. Let's say a space station takes 100,000 SCU of cargo to build, right? Just the base station. No, none of the extras and stuff. Just 100,000 SCU. Well, that would have been like one load on the whole E, right? Where now you've got some like gameplay loop happening now where it's going to take 12 loads of a whole E. So you can sort of start to think about that. Now, if it was going to be much higher, right? Let's say if they were thinking about it with the whole E carrying 100,000 SCU cargo, they would have been like, oh, well, the space station needs to have 1 million SCU to build it. Okay, well, now with the 32 SCU cargo crate limitation, that's like a lot of cargo to build that thing. Again, I'm using totally pie in the sky numbers here, everybody. But you get what I'm saying, that when you sort of rethink about that cargo crate limit now of 32 SCU, that's going to have roll-ons for everything, for missions, space station building, base building, all that kind of stuff. Future cargo ships, right? It kind of gives us a metric to play off of.
I think when I did the math on the old Hull E with 32 SU cargo containers, it was still over 3,000 boxes, which is just it's way too many.
Can you imagine unloading those by hand or loading them by hand?
Yeah.
You wouldn't.
Well, they've
And
kind of
so-
removed a lot of that now too, haven't
Yep.
they? You've essentially got the tractor beams on the ship and some on the station, and that's it.
And so you'd be using, you'd get the automated loading, but it's still going to take time. And so you'd be sitting there for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 minutes
Right.
while the cargo is loaded automatically. And if you're doing it by hand, God help you.
Yeah. Again, and it's probably 5 or 6 people doing that, not just one person.
Yeah.
As well.
So,
Grim, I did send you a picture, basically in crayon, of my idea to make it more clear for people. If you want to have a look at it. Yeah, told you it was crayon.
There
Was a
you go.
line.
so the spindle's
does that make
moving.
sense?
Yeah. So the top spindle's moving completely vertical if there's clearance there for the boxes, which I'd assume there would be.
Well, you
because
could
the spindles
also you could also move them out sideways too, so they could also separate a little bit, so it was possible.
Right.
But the idea is sound.
Yeah. Again, Bluesy says beautiful work, by the way. Again, I think it comes down to I just feel like it's almost impossible for there not to be some sort of actuation on those spindles, right? For it to land.
If you use Photoshop for 29 years, you too can be that beautiful when you do Photoshop.
So with the Hull C at 4,608 SCU of cargo, again, you extrapolate that to a 32 SCU box. I think it's 128 boxes. I used to know that math
Hang on,
by heart.
I'll do the math. What was the number again? How much?
4,608.
600.
Oh, it's 144.
Divided by 32 is 144. Yeah.
So 144 SCU of cargo. Moving to the Hull D at 6,912 SCU of cargo. That's 216 32 SCU boxes. So still a lot.
Correct.
Yep.
That's what? That's
about a third more, isn't it?
Yeah, that's 60, 70 more boxes than a Hull C that you're loading again manually in the future.
Yeah.
And then we're venturing up to the Hull E. What's the Hull E's numbers? Let's say. So we're 12,288 divided by 32. That is 384.
That's the
boxes.
old Hull. That's the old Hull C's individual SCU. Hull B's individual used to be 384. Look, a lot of people have been sending me messages over the week. I even got one. Someone just pinged me just a minute ago. You know who you are. Who's made a post on Spectrum going, "Oh, they don't need to nerf it nearly as much." But the thing is, you kind of do want to get those numbers as low as you can.
Yeah.
For two reasons. Obviously, performance. But does it really need to be like the biggest one? Need to be double everything else? No, it doesn't. It just needs to be bigger than everything else, and it still is bigger.
And it still is.
Yeah, you got to remember the economy too. Like that's so much bloody cargo. It's just insane.
It's all relative, right? And even with the speed changes in ships, right? So if your ship goes 1,000 miles an hour and every other ship goes plus or minus 1,000 miles per hour, some go 950 miles per hour, some go 1,050 miles per hour. Again, the only relative difference between all of them is 50 miles an hour up to 100 miles per hour, right? Same thing with cargo, right? You have to, and especially when I speak about like space stations and stuff, the Hull E, the 12,000 can still be considered astronomically large as long as everything relative to it is brought down to reality too, and that's sort of what we're talking about here. You're not going to have cargo missions now, because I used to think about this. I was like, man, you're going to have to do cargo missions that require you to ferry 98,000 SCU of car. That's like crazy, right? Now it just means the cargo missions are going to be capped at 12,288. You know what I mean? That's probably going to be the biggest cargo missions.
Yeah, and scaling the economy to work around it too. It still gives you a massive advantage. There's some other ways that can just be balanced, so it doesn't even appear as a nerf at all. It just seems like big number seems better than little number, and I could understand the panic of people that own these ships. And Agri, you own them, don't you, from memory? So
I do.
I've got the D.
And I thought, oh, thank you.
I know. And so the next big question everyone asks me, for some people, there's a lot of people out there that for some reason when it comes to me, they think length matters. It's not length. It's how you use it, everybody. But is the hull D and E going to come down in size, right? The hull D, I think, was originally spec'd out to be 205 meters long. That's 890 jump size. Hull E was 372. That's like in between Idris and Javelin. Will the size of these ships come down? Probably so, yes. I think there's going to be a scale adjustment with these ships, but I think the scale adjustment, again, will benefit the ship in several ways. So, for example, previously, and you guys, I'd be interested, Algrid, and execute what your thoughts on there. Previously, I don't think the hull D and E were able to land. Maybe?
The C, D, and E can't land.
Right.
Yeah.
When they're laden with cargo. Can the D and E
yes.
land when they don't have any cargo on them?
I believe they can all land when they don't have cargo.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Well, either way, with the size decrease, I think that probably guarantees that these ships still are being planned to land with no cargo on them or no laden cargo. I would imagine that by the time the D and E are in production, CIG will have matured on how and where they place tractor beams. We've already seen some massive improvements to that. I think it was the Galamox, for example, has like a really nifty tractor beam kind of set up.
Yep.
And I think we'll see that continue to mature. So hopefully by the time, again, the bigger these ships are, so for example, with the Hull E at 372 meters, that means you need to have more than just the tractor beams on the front and back of the ship to handle all the cargo. You're going to have mid-length tractor beams and all that because there's limits there on distance. So with these ships shrinking in size, you can be a lot more efficient with the tractor beams you put on the ship. You don't have to have 10 tractor beams spread across. You can have less operator seats, etc.
You can put bigger ones on as well.
You can put
But
bigger ones.
I do remember. Yeah, I do remember John talking about the spindles on the E. He literally said for it to be able to get even close to 98,000, it actually had the spindles triple over on themselves, so they have to zigzag type of thing to be even able to fit them in. So that's tech that they just couldn't get working properly. So again, by bringing these the cargo count down, it not just optimizes the game, it makes it so the game is more likely to work properly. There's just so many reasons why these weren't going to work. And I think you'd agree, Algrid, I'm not to put words in your mouth, but these are one of those older ship designs like the Endeavour and the Crucible that were done back in the day with those old metrics. It was 100% going to be the case they had to change.
Like the D and E originally weren't going to exist. Neither was the A and the B. The artist who was commissioned to do the Hull C concept went to town because these were supposed to be the ubiquitous ship in the verse, and so they went, "Oh, here's an A, here's a B, here's a C, here's a D, here's an E," and CIG went, "Yep, awesome,
Right.
We'll take the lot.
We'll take them all."
Yeah, we'll take them all, and that was like, this is 2013, actually probably 2014.
Yeah.
Let me ask some OGs here since I have you two. Were the whole series all concept like revealed at the same time? All of them?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Hullabalooza Pack is what it was called. Yep. And they all kind of came out, and it was just like, whoa, 5 ships. I was like, what the hell's going on? And
and they basically said our graphic artist went to town, and we went, yeah, we'll take a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was certainly something that was very early on in design. It's the Hull C when it first came out was what individually was 250 or 350 or something like that. Same as a Crucible and the Endeavour.
Yep. And it crept up over the years and then made that big jump too, didn't it? But other things have changed too. It was like it was meant to have all this advertising on the outside, like as you can see in the pictures you've got there on Hangerlink. That's not a thing anymore. They removed all that because it was just too annoying to load and unload the cargo because it was in the way.
Yeah, that's why these Covalec shipping signs are there, everybody, if you were curious about that.
Yeah, so one of the Hull Cs is renowned as a pirate Hull C. Pirate being the operative word, would turn up at race events and do anti-government slogans, advertisements on its panels.
I love that. That's cool.
You know, so and that was the thing. This one whole C would turn up and do that at these events. So that's something that's changed. And that's something in law that'll change, because if it doesn't have the panels, it's got nowhere to do the advertisements anymore. So
maybe they'll just make it so it's on the side of crates or something, Agrid, and it does it with that. That it's
Maybe.
carrying.
Yeah. I'm going to hit a few questions here, just because people have been asking. So I'm going to ask some questions here. Some of them won't relate to the whole series because they came in before. But Artemis says, Grim or anyone, what would you like to see next from Anvil? We'll rapid fire some of these. I would like to see a mine layer from Anvil.
I wonder why he wants to see a mine layer. Does anyone in chat possibly know why he wants an Anvil mine layer?
Because that would guarantee the Nautilus would go in development.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yep.
That's what he really wants.
Yeah. What about you
I
guys?
kind of see the Nautilus. So I kind of see the Nautilus is the mine layer / you know, I think back to the World War II little corvette that Australia had. You know, it basically did everything: sub hunting, mine laying, mine retrieval. And I kind of see, you know, and even in, as I understand it, in the modern navies, you know, your mine layers tend to be your mine retrieval and ships, and so to divide, I might have an individual mine layer and an individual extraction ship. Doesn't seem to make sense, but
for me, I want to see an Anvil starter ship below the Arrow, so like your basic functional starter. I don't know whether that would be really a snub, and I don't know how much smaller you could get than an Arrow, but an Arrow being like $75, I think you've kind of got room there to put something underneath it. Don't know exactly what.
I'd love to see Anvil's version of the cutter, you know, something that a little bit general purpose. Maybe there's some variants.
A little bit of Terrapin love in there, maybe something a bit more tanky. Yeah. Or even an Anvil, or an Anvil bike, even. You know, like a military bike from Anvil would be pretty cool.
Cool. Algrid, what do you think? What would you like to see
well,
from Anvil?
I was saying an Anvil snub, and I know someone saying, what about the Pisces? Pisces isn't a snub ship because it's got quantum drive.
Oh, yeah.
And
Pisces,
jump drive.
Yeah.
I'm talking something P-52 size.
Yeah.
What about a giant wheel that's a bike that just drives along with guns?
You're going to trigger people with that bike tech. Arcroft says,
stiletto, that's what I'd call it.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Arcroft says, what changes you think the BMM will have regarding its cargo? Do you guys think the BMM will have any cargo changes to it?
If it needs it.
I think a lot of that was probably worked out. It's really just getting people that can do the look again.
Yeah, I agree.
Getting them up to that stylized thing. They would have worked a lot of that out in the pre-production area.
I think they landed on, what was it, like 2,700 or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. I just don't know if it needs any more than that. I mean, again, sure, everyone would love more cargo, but I don't know if it needs any more than that.
I thought it was supposed to be a whole C type competitor in terms of cargo. I could be wrong. I could be just pulling stuff out the rear, but and one of the key things that it's
a bit less. It's a bit less than that now. I think it's about 300 less, but it's also got the shops, and the shops have grown quite. There's quite a number of them now.
I have the updated cargo in here for it. Let me. I'll spawn it while you're talking.
But the other thing with it is it also has the hangar for the Defender.
Yeah.
And that gives it, you know, if you compare it to the it is significantly bigger than a whole C.
Okay, it's 3,584, so it's about 1,000 SCU less than the hull C, but it's still a hell of a lot of cargo. 3,500 is a lot.
Yeah.
And then when you take into account it's got 10 shops and the hangar and that massive gun turret thing on it, like that thing is
and a hangar for the Defender.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a Banu. It's basically a Banu frigate or corvette or whatever you want to call it. It's their warship as well as their transport, their trade ship.
Yeah.
It's
Falcon DS9 says, quick question. How long does it take to add new ships to Fleet Viewer? It just depends on everyone's availability.
Put your hands out about a foot apart and go this long. This long.
That takes that long.
Yeah.
But those are coming, by the way, everyone. Just a couple of days, or maybe a day, maybe 2 days away from them all landing in Fleet Viewer, including a few extras. Again, had a lot of requests for the Heart Seeker Mark II. It is coming. We got it done. It's coming with this update. Let's see. Next question here says, Skelter Rancid says 6,000 SCU. Isn't that a bit much for a game like Star Citizen in its current scope when comparing to games like Elite Dangerous and Eve? What in-game process is going to be needed for those kind of resources, and to what end? I'll answer the last part of that, and it's because it's what I was just saying not too long ago. Large base building, space station building, and then there's going to be missions that support 6,000 plus SCU of cargo. As a matter of fact, I guarantee you to build a space station is going to require multiple whole D runs to get it built. So, but what do you guys think? Let's go ahead with the whole E. Is 12,000 SCU of cargo, they're saying, seems like a bit much for the current scope?
Well, I can answer them both in one simple kind of thing. Like the original plan for the whole series is, you can tell A's and B's were essentially stationed a planet, C's were in a system, and then D and E, like there was obviously lot overlap between, say, where the B is, right? It could do the station a planet, but can do a little bit what the C does.
Yep.
Right. And then the D does a little bit what the C does, but does a little bit what the E does. And the E is literally just on this highway going from one side of the galaxy to the other and back again, or right around the outside. But it's only stopping at like one station in the entire system.
Yeah.
It's not stopping at every single station because it's just unloading massive amounts of cargo, taking more on, and it's just moving all that cargo. Where you're on the other scale, you've got the A and the B that's just getting it to little individual places on every little planet. Essentially a space station is a distribution center that is relying on that cargo. And again, when you get it to a distribution center, then they get split up and put onto cars, and they'll go out into the roads and deliver it to the little towns and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if you look at Stanton, we actually have a distribution center in Stanton. It's the ruined Covelex station.
Yeah, right.
Which is currently offline, but that was the idea of that Covelex station. Big trade vessels would come, offload their stuff, and then it'd be sent off to the planetary stations and then spread out to where it needed to go.
So real quick, I'm going to use the restroom real quick, but you two are the perfect to talk about the next question, because I think you two know a lot more about it than I do. So you can maybe speak to the crowd about it. But Gin and Tonic was asking, when I had brought up the Jupiter by Crusader, was asking, wasn't the Jupiter a shipping ship? So here's what the question I'm going to ask you guys while I go use the restroom, and you can talk to the audience about it. A, what is the Jupiter? And B, do we expect any ships to come along in the future to compete with the D and E? Primarily the D, though. Be right back.
All right, now he's gone. We should just go to the toilet too. Awkward silence for 5 minutes. What do you reckon? He shouldn't have left us in charge, should he? He should not have left us in charge.
He should not have left us.
All right, you answer. Go ahead.
All right, first part of the question, what is the Jupiter? The Jupiter was a ship built by Crusader. When they were starting off, they had a problem. They had a really great ship. They had their little shuttle they were selling, but there was a problem in delivery. They were falling behind because people were not able to deliver their ships. And so they said, let's build our own. And so they did build their own carrier for literally taking their shuttles that they were selling off to the market. And so it was literally a Crusader's carrier. I've got to admit, when the Kraken came out, I was a bit peeved that they didn't build the Jupiter, because that was a civilian carrier that was in law but hadn't been built. And it's the same with the idea of the
It's a bit different though, isn't it? The Kraken's more for light fighters. I think it was for delivering Hercules though, wasn't it, originally, the Jupiter?
No, it was for delivering their shuttle. They had a shuttle they were building, and they couldn't keep up with demand because the cargo ships just weren't reliable.
I'm back. All
right, so we just got back from the toilet. Yeah, we just got back from the toilet. Are you back now?
I'm back. I'm officially back.
Yeah, so we went to the toilet too.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
All right, next question.
What are you eating? What are you eating? You're making me hungry.
Sandwich. It's my dinner time, everybody. But that's the way we do it here on Grim Streams. Everyone keep it casual. If you need to have your dinner while you're watching this, by all means.
So we basically talked about the Jupiter being a shipping ship that Crusader developed to solve a logistics problem they had for their shuttles that they were selling.
Right.
That's as far as we got for that question.
Do we think that that comment John makes in the video where he says, "Look, we're not even planning another ship as big as the D&E." Do you think that was simply made to sort of, prevent the avalanche of salt about the numbers coming down on the D&E, or do you think that's really the plan?
I think it was for an older game too. You got to remember, like the game has essentially grown a lot. Like back before these ships were done, we were going to just have landing zones, and the systems you were going to they're going to be 100 systems in the game at launch. Now we're looking at 5 systems that are way more detailed, and the whole D and E are probably not really even going to be needed for those first 5. Let's be honest. Yeah. I think you'd almost want to have like 10 in a line before you even considered the E.
I mean, again, the beyond supplying the supply hub, right? That thing that you build the space stations with, beyond supplying that, and I'll bring that up so everyone in chat can see it. But beyond supplying the supply hub with tons of cargo to build your space station, I can't really see a lot of need for it right now.
And again, you look at that supply wall.
Yeah,
that's 12 boxes.
Right.
You're talking about like, do you really want to hold D or an E sitting there with 6,000 to 12,000 boxes undefended? Yeah. No, you're really going to probably do that with a whole C. Let's be honest. You're going to go up with a whole C, and again, those drones can only build at a certain speed.
Yeah.
So you're probably going to go up and down from the planet with a whole C or a B or something like that. You're going to not want to have. It's too much outlay.
Yeah.
Now, down the track, when more systems are on, yes, the DNA are valuable. But I would take John Crew at his word that they're not looking at those at the present. And I think of the fact that they've sold these ships, so they've got to build these ships.
Right.
And you'll recall, X, when we were talking about the Galaxy, and John Crew said, we don't have to build it because we haven't sold it.
Right. Right.
If we haven't sold it, we're not bespoke. We're not beholden to have to build it. And it was talking about that module, that build module for the Galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
And then the comment was, yes, but you actually said it was a build ship.
Yeah.
And John was like, well, that took him back, and it was because it wasn't kind of the official timeline. It was like it was put on CitizenCon as these are the types of ships that would do it, but it hadn't been communicated.
Internal communication. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just to rapid fire some questions here. Robert Vols says, do we think that it is still planned for the bigger hulls, the D&E, to be able to ferry ships within the container frames?
They talked about putting, like, way back in the day, you could always break them down and put them in a box. There was the idea of, I've seen images of them basically being in bigger boxes, so it would be equivalent to like a 64 SCU cargo container.
Yeah.
Again, they were more of a frame than a box.
Yeah. So
maybe they could skirt around the idea of, maybe you can get a 64 frame, but it's only for ships or something like that. That they can make allowances.
From a tech standpoint, it's definitely possible.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah. It absolutely is possible.
Keep It Secret says, question, do you think the D should have been double the C and the E double the D? And you kind of addressed this earlier. And then in two-parter says, do you think they will nerf the Merchantman's cargo and the Drake Kraken?
Not really. They're still way smaller. They're still way smaller. And you got to remember, a whole C is essentially, if you look at the lineup, it's like, like a medium in the middle. It's not a medium, but it's in the middle of that run. And I would say, if you look at the price of you got to remember the price, they're not out yet, right? So you'd probably say the D is roughly in alignment with the Banner Merchantman, but it's got less cargo than the C.
Yeah.
And so when
And what is the E's current price? I have it here, right? It's $750 hull limited. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and then you've got 650 for the Banner Merchantman,
Mhm.
but also the Banner Merchantman's got a lot of shops and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and it is a more luxury ship as well, in my opinion. It's
Yeah.
kind of up there with Origin and Kruger now.
And-
Um,
And then when you compare the not the Kraken, the Banner Merchantman to other ships of size like the Idris or the 890 Jump or the Kraken, it still has significantly more cargo than those. So
Yeah.
I don't think it needs to get nerfed. But I do think it does fit in with being a merchant ship rather than a shop ship. Shop ship idea on the Kraken privateer. It loses cargo, but it gets converted to the shop space, so it's kind of not lost, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm actually kind of surprised they went ahead with doing the Galaxy, by the way. I still don't
Very
quite
surprised.
understand why they. Yeah, like there was just no need to do it anymore.
Uh,
I guess it was just like we kind of promised it, so we better do it now rather than later. or
I'll
there'll
be
a
honest with you.
hullabaloo.
If you would have asked me, I would have said the Arastra was more likely. But the
agreed.
only thing I can think is I think that the Galaxy is probably, from an interior perspective, more closely related to the Perseus than we think. And I actually think the Arastra on the interior is probably sort of new territory because it'll be RSI industrial interior. So I think that'll be kind of crazy.
And the exterior.
And exterior, yeah.
Let's be honest. Like I think the
By the way, thank you for the follows, everybody.
I was saying to Algar, I don't know if I said this to you, but the Salvation is clearly the first industrial RSI ship we've seen. Right, it's a new style going forward, and essentially, I'd rather see them take their time. And if you think about it, if they're going up to the Orion and the Arastra, wouldn't you want to do like the medium and the small after the Salvation? So next year we might see a small. The year after that we might see a medium, and the year after that we might see an Arastra, as an example. And when you kind of work that all through, it makes a lot more sense. But to turn around to the Galaxy when you've already got the Polaris, the Zeus, the Perseus, you've got all those assets just sitting there ready to flip it over. They'll churn that thing out really quick.
And I partially wonder if, let's not forget about some of the other stuff that was said even just recently that I still don't think was. I think John Crew knew exactly what he was doing when he said this, but they had mentioned something that the merchantman may go into pre-production again at the end of 2026. Again, you start to factor up all the ships we sort of know they're working on. Doesn't mean they're actively pushing them to flight ready, but ships we know that are in production. Everything from the Starlancer build to the Kraken to the Ironclads to now the Galaxy, the Pioneer. You start to really rack up some big ships.
So Voyo Blight in chat said they promised the Galaxy after the Perseus, though. Actually, that's technically completely incorrect. They actually promised the Galaxy, and they never promised anything. They said we're going to do the Polaris, the Galaxy, then the Perseus.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're doing them completely out of order from what they said, and it's never a promise. You should not use the word promise. It's always a plan. This is our plan.
Yeah.
A plan is not a promise.
They've definitely gone sideways on some of their promises before. That's for sure.
But did they promise
I still say
it's not a promise. It's a plan.
They're not saying it's a promise. It's a plan. This is what we plan to do. But we, as backers, say, no, you said you're going to do this. Therefore, you're breaking your promise. No, they said, this is our plan. This is what we plan or hope to do, barring staffing, tech issues, and multiple other things. So,
someone, they literally said the Galaxy's coming at AIE, the Invictus. God, man. There's someone I know being in min chat today.
Yeah, no, I can already go ahead and predict, I think, what next year is going to be like in terms of like marquee ships. And I think you guys would agree with this, that Ironclad Assault at DefenseCon. There'll be some other ships at DefenseCon for sure, but those are kind of, I think, going to be the two standout marquee ships. And then obviously IAE will be Galaxy. We still could technically get something. I actually would put the Rail in somewhere in next year as kind of a marquee ship. First off, we don't get alien ships that often, and this is a very, very popular one. And I think the first non-combat one. Well, I guess the Sulin was not combat focused, but it's going to be a big deal.
Alien one.
Yeah, it's going to be a big
alien. We haven't had a big alien one. We've only had really fighters and starters.
Yeah.
I think the other one you could probably add to Invictus is the Anvil Auxiliaria, whatever the fuck it was called.
Oh yeah, the generalist ground vehicle or versatile ground vehicle.
Yeah, the Clipper ground vehicle.
Yeah. Rapid firing a few more here. Someone HeroLex says, doesn't the whole series offer auto loading and auto unloading? Well, all cargo ships will offer that to some degree. There's a time and money investment in that process, but that there will be an auto loading, auto unloading feature.
Yeah. And a ship, the more cargo, obviously, the more it's going to cost. So it eats more into your profits. So, if you've got if you've got 6 people on your ship and you can afford to take the time, you're all going to make more money if you can be bothered doing it. You know.
And Macro has sort of a follow-on to that, which he says, will auto-loading still be a thing for 1.0, or do we think CIG will sort of cancel auto-loading when 1.0 comes out? I think it will still be a thing, primarily because CIG is going to need gold sinks, as I call them, or money sinks. You know what I mean? They need a place for you to burn money to sort of keep the economy in check. So I think auto-loading and auto-unloading will definitely be a thing. Now, they could ratchet up the price and time commitment of that, but absolutely it'll be a thing. By the way, just a couple call-outs here. Thank you, Zuku, Zenduli, Gothreg, Khalees, Commander Schrodinger, thank you for those follows, and everyone who's hydrated me, posture checked me. Do appreciate it. Mithras1 cheered 100 biddies. Appreciate that, Mithras. Appreciate everybody hanging out too. Got a good crowd tonight. 230 on Twitch and 300 on YouTube. I guess a lot of people wanted to talk about the cargo discussion surrounding the hulls. This is an emotional topic for people, I think. So this is why John Crew wanted to get that information out. They did not want this to drop on people, at the wrong place at the wrong time. So, another question here. JTemp says, question, in real life we have containers with things like server rooms, apartments, etc. Do you think we could see something like that in SC? What do you guys think?
Say that again. Sorry, I missed that one.
So he says, in real life, we have containers with things like server rooms inside them, apartments inside them, medical rooms inside them. Do you think we could see something like that in SC? So sort of like a modular container that has functionality.
What is the need of it? What do you get out of building that?
Would we think that?
You know what I mean?
I mean, is that the Carrick's cargo pods though? In a way, they're modular cargo.
It's a tough one. Like I can see it more from a thematic reason. Like you go to a landing zone or something like that, and they've put containers down and people are living out of them.
Yeah.
But functionally, what do you get out of it functionally? Because you'd also have to put the modules in, say, for oxygen and life support, so someone could survive in there. I don't see what you get out of that for the work required to pull it off. That's what I'm asking. So, is there something else you can do instead that gives you a lot more gains for the same amount of work? That's literally what game development is. That's why they reuse a lot of things, because it allows you, if it only does one thing. We literally did an episode just today talking about something that was only used once, and I wondered at the end of it, I basically said, "Can you think of another reason where they could use this again?"
Yeah.
It raises the question of, okay, what are you using? What are you using these for? Are you using for ground bases? Yeah, I could see it doing, but again, what do you get out of it game wise?
Yeah,
I could see them being used in derelict outposts, and you kind of see elements of that when you go to the derelict outpost. You see the containers open and them being with a cot inside or other stuff, but they lack the servability. I could see the thought of players going, could we have these components in containers, and then I put them on my ship, and then I use it to the facilities on that container to increase the usability of my ship. And I would see if they did have that on the container ships like these, there's no power supply for them, so they're separated. And they did talk about ages ago having when they talked about the fighters being able to be in the containers and the container would open and for their Q ship and the fighters would come out.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, they were talking about the fighter would have to be crewed by the guy, and the guy would have to stay in the container, and they'd have to use their suit, oxygen, all other stuff. So
yeah,
even though they kind of hinted at those times as being a possibility, the idea was it wasn't something they were really looking at as main development.
I'll be back in a minute, boys.
Yeah,
Be right back.
I could definitely see a future where in base building, maybe you want to drop off a modular cargo room, or say it's a Carrick module that is like a little clinic that you can just keep on site while you're building your base, or maybe one's a generator, so you can provide power to some of your buildings before you have the ability to build the power station. But we'll have to see what CIG does with that. Yeah, go ahead.
And if you look, at our modern navies, you do have the modular containers, things that go onto the ships to actually change the role of a ship. So I can see where that idea is coming from. But then the question is, what do you want to do that to game? What do you get out of it? What benefit do you have by creating a whole new design tech? And wouldn't that design tech be kind of a basic in terms of what we see in the buildings and stuff? And so the answer is yes, it's possible, but is it worth CIG's time, effort, money, etc. to add that design style?
Mm-hmm.
And that I can't give an answer to, and I'm pretty certain you can't either.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, everyone, pinned to the top of chat on both YouTube and on Twitch, or at least I think it's pinned to the top of chat on Twitch. You will see a Gleam link. You can go to that Gleam link and enter my latest giveaway, courtesy of CIG. This is for a Gollum game package with LTI. I'll be giving that away next Tuesday, by the way, next Tuesday. So go to that Gleam link if you want. You can just a subscriber, or go to the YouTube channel, or be a follower on Twitch and X. It also gives you the ability, if you're already a follower there, you don't have to do anything. It counts them, and it gives you the ability to repost my new player's guide for another ticket. So make sure you get in on that. Tech Emotion Chaos, thank you for those follows. Thank you for those follows. And then Meister Chewy Num Nums, hell of a name. Just rated with 4 viewers. Algrid approves. Thank you for that raid, Meister. Appreciate that. Salute to you. Thanks for bringing your community over here. We don't have much longer either, but appreciate you bringing your community over.
Always appreciate it.
Yes.
Always love.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Another question here. This is one I wanted to get to. This one, we'll go ahead and drop this image over because it's the ship we're going to talk about now. Next question says, do you think the Pioneer is going to be locked behind base building and space station building? If so, how long do you reasonably expect it to be before it's actually in the game? That's a good question. I do think it's locked behind those things. Yes.
I do think it's locked behind those things as well.
Yeah.
And we know it's changed significantly from what it was. I think it reduces the footprint of it significantly. It no longer has to open up a wide arm to get the printing stuff out. So based on what the blue curtain was last year, it was going into production, but that doesn't mean, and that's usually an 18-month window if they don't stop.
Right.
So went into production this year at some point. Then you're looking at 18 months, then you're usually looking sometime in, I would say, at the latest, you're looking at 27.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I think I would say that they want this ship, because someone was asking me, is this a 1.0 ship, like a post 1.0? I actually think this is a pre 1.0 ship. I do think they want to get this ship in the game before 1.0, and the primary reason is because I think large base building and space stations are going to be part of the 1.0 release. So they have to have this ship in game earlier than that to test it. What I would say, though, is that this ship has quite a few tech blockers, right? It's got fabrication hangar, It's got crafting stations, which we're getting crafting stations very, very soon. It's got resource extraction through the legs. It's got drones. And the drones it has, not only is the drone control a thing, but also the base building component of drones, right? So a lot of blockers for this ship. I think the reason it's in development now is because they know it's going to, A, take a long time, and B, I think they're very well aware that this ship is going to have some stop and starts to it over the course of its production. It's a 250-meter ship. This is a big ship. This thing's bigger than an Idris. So it's not a small ship.
New version or the old version?
That's the new version. So the new version is, let me and actually have it here. The new version is, I know I have it here. It's 247 meters long. The Idris is 242. So this thing's 5 meters bigger than an Idris. And essentially, not to get overly specific with it, but that just means it's a big ass ship, and it's going to take, and it's with a manufacturer that we haven't seen on that scale yet. You know what I mean?
But that model there is still the old model.
So this model here is the new model that you're seeing on screen now. And the way you can tell the new from the old is that the new has 2 VTOLs on either side of the front of the ship.
Yep.
Yeah, where the old model only had 1. That's like one of the easiest things to see. But yeah,
So
this is from the Citizen
from the one
console.
they had at Sitcom when they were showing base building, or was that the? No, that was the build, wasn't it?
Yeah, they did. They showed all the base building vehicles there, but
Yeah.
they didn't really show
But they
this in game or white
they
box. Yeah, it was really just this concept art here, and again, you can see those dual VTOLs there on the front. And you can some of you can chat here can see the little CSVs and the Storm down here and the little people walking around. Suffice it to say, it's a monster ship. It's a big with a complicated interior. There's a lot going on here. This is going to be a big ship. This is not coming 2026. I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now that the Kraken, all those ships are not coming 2026.
From what I can recall, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but this was the only ship that can build the that platform that builds a starbase.
Yeah, the supply hub, this thing here.
But
Yep.
but the other ships are one that can build the planetary base building thing.
Yeah.
And so that's it. That hub is the only thing you need a Pioneer for. And I can remember when we were talking with Ben and John, that was the one thing that one of the things that blew Ben's mind. There were 2 things that I can remember Ben having that kind of mind blown expression. One was the fact that he couldn't get his head around CCUs and how the whole CCU chaining thing worked.
Yeah.
And he was just amazed at the savings people got out of that. The other one was the Pioneer and talking to someone, and I'm saying everyone in New York had a Pioneer, and he was like, why? He just couldn't understand why everyone would have a Pioneer, because it was like you only need 1 per org. It was that type of ship.
Yeah, I'm obviously they have access to the number of Pioneers sold, but it's got to be so difficult for them when they're thinking of these especially these hull limited ships or ships that are the keys to very specific gameplay things like this with the space stations. And you're trying to sort of project into the future and think about how the balance is going to be. Like, okay, is the access to space stations too plentiful? If it is, like, what I mean by that is, like, if there's a hell of a lot more Pioneers out there than Ben thought, and that's a lot more accessible. Again, you can balance how many space stations get ultimately built, of course, by the resources that are needed to build them. But it is kind of a tricky thing, I think, when CIG has these hull limited ships and you're sort of projecting out the balance of like how many of these are supposed to be in the verse or not be in the verse.
See, for me, it was more like at the time when he was talking about it was going, so this just shows how marketing is completely separate and not informed.
Yeah.
Because they shouldn't be selling it as an org level ship that requires 100 people or whatever.
Yeah. hitting a few more questions here. Let's see here. Let me grab one. A couple duplicates. More duplicates. Stand by, everyone. A lot of whole questions here. Okay, this one here. Zeta Udon says, question, do you think they could make a competitor to the Hull C / D? Let's go ahead and say C, because I do think the D and E, they're going to keep sequestered a bit to make sure that those are the big ones. But let's say this. Do we think there'll be a competitor to the C at around that 4,500 SCU mark? I can answer that first and just say I hope so. I hope that there's one that's a little bit more modeled off of that sort of consolidated Outland style cargo ship that we saw in the Squadron trailer. I would love something a little bit more like that, kind of space barge. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Competitor in the future, you think?
I think there kind of already is with the whole, with the banner management. Like it does it internally.
Very close,
it's got
yeah.
Shops. It's doing things just slightly differently, you know?
Yep.
Yep. And I think you'll find that a Xi'an equivalent, although you got to remember the Hull C is supposed to be ubiquitous. It is a ship that you see everywhere.
Yeah.
It is so good at what it does, it's basically destroyed the competition in the EU.
Right.
Not in the EU, in the UEE.
Design
It's
even
so
build your
popular.
own. Yeah, go ahead.
It's so popular that it's part of a deal with the Xi'an to trade with MISC so that MISC get this parts and the Xi'an can build the Hull C.
Yeah.
That's how popular the Hull C is. And you think about it, game mechanics wise, it meant CIG didn't have to build 50 million main traders. It's so popular, the other races are using it.
Yeah.
And there's other questions too, like is it going to be scaled to fit a Xi'an? Is it going to have Xi'an beds in it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, are we going to, like a Vandal Scythe versus a captured Scythe, like how the humans can fit in it? Is that going to be a physically smaller Vandal Scythe to fit humans? All these
Right.
type of interesting questions.
Couple more rapid fires here. Let's see here. Will we get any base building ships next year? And if so, what size ships? Small, medium, large, etc. I mean, that's an easy question to answer. We'll get base building ships next year if base building's coming next year. We
And if we do,
don't
it'll be
know
the
that.
build.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I could see us getting that little hover trolley and maybe the CSV FM as well.
Agreed.
Just because I think they're done with the
Everything
build
that's been
being the
announced,
F2, yeah.
essentially.
Essentially
that's
everything
ready
but
to
the
go.
Pioneer,
Yeah.
I could see. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
Next question. Naughty Beaver says, question, can you read my last comment? No, because it's passed already. Sorry about that. Solomon says, Solomon Vengeful says, do you think there's a place for prisoner pods that can be placed on any cargo grid that turns any ship into a makeshift bounty hunting vessel?
Yep.
Yeah. I don't see why not. DJ Moore says...
That was a quick rapid fire answer.
Yeah, and I like it. DG Moore says, how are we going to transport large quantities of ships built on planet bases back to Stanton if not the Hull E? I think you'll be able to put them on the Kraken, on the Liberator. I think there's going to be a number of ways to ship those, for sure. I mean, with the Liberator and Kraken being perfect ships for that.
I think both of you would agree that also the whole series being back, 2014 and all the ships that came after it, there's clearly been an expansion of the game. So carrying other vehicles on a carrier rather than carrying them in boxes is clearly going to be preferred.
Yeah.
I could see you having it carted, delivered by a Hull C, but it's in box. If it's done in a box, it's in parts. It gets reconstructed.
Exactly.
And,
There's a time factor element, isn't there? You
Yeah.
got the convenience of being able to take it in a cargo bay and it's protected in a box. It's, possibly inside a ship or whatever. It's hidden.
Yeah.
As opposed to going, oh, there's a Liberator. It's on the deck. Let's shoot it.
Next, got a couple more questions here, everybody. When, if ever, do you think CIG will implement a system where we can consolidate / choose our own cargo box size? Example, combine a bunch of 2 SCUs into a 32 SCU. I think they need to do that and prioritize it soon. If I had to guess, I could see this coming online when the inventory rework comes online, because I think they might be changing how things are moved and stacked. So that I'm speculating wildly here, but it could come when we get the inventory rework, which we know is in development.
I think it's not until we attack Elliot. Elliot's having way too much fun making us drag around 4 SCU card containers when we could drag around 32.
I would
son of a bitch.
that we can't combine 2 SCU containers into an 8 SCU container. Rather, I'd rather be able to pallet them, because I can't change 4 boxes into a larger box in real life. Why should I be able to do it in game if we're going for that?
It's cool. It's virtual, Algrid, and it's
I know.
Yeah.
It's virtual. That's why I said pallet them rather than change them.
I think what it would have to be, and there may be a time and money sink to this process, even if you're doing it, quote unquote, in your warehouse. But in some way, it's sort of the same idea behind magazine repacking, right? Where the contents of one box need to be removed, placed into a different box, repacked. So I can't see that being knowing CIG, I cannot see that being an automatic feature. That's probably going to be a time and money sink as well. So yeah. Real quick here, because, and we got a lot of questions. Everybody can't get to all of them. Going to do a few more. And then I want to reiterate a few things. Let me move this picture. See, Cody Fox says, since Pioneer and Kraken probably not in 2026, and Galaxy and Ironclad are probably headliners, doesn't that mean no capital ships for 2026? Isn't that a problem for backlog? No, we should have a capital ship next year. Possibly the Javelin. Thoughts on that, guys?
Also, they mentioned the battlecruiser concept. Technically, it's not coming out, but
not coming out, but sold. What do you think? What do you guys think the likelihood the Javelin would come out next year? We haven't heard any more about that.
Pretty much depends on Squadron, but I think we're at this point, Squadron's make or break.
Yeah, yeah. Next question here. When will we see refinery ships with the continued development of Nyx? I think the better question is just, will we see refinery ships at all? Because there's a couple of gameplay loops that tie into that. And by the way, thank you for the follows, everyone. I do see them. Thank you very, very much. Appreciate that. I think the easy answer there is yes. I think we're going to see refinery ships this year because the Galaxy has a refinery module. I can't see it launching without that module either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It would be nice to see the Starfarer get its refinery.
Yeah.
It's a requirement for base building too, because you've got to be able to take the materials from mining and salvage and then refine them so they're craftable.
Right.
So at the very least, we've got the station that can do it, but do you really want to be traveling from the location that you're at all the way back to a station and then bringing it all the way back again, where you can either have a Galaxy or an Expanse that's there to do it, or a module that you can build? And I think that would be the other alternative as well.
Especially when we've heard that CIG does, when you're building your base, they said that they don't want you to have to like constantly run back and forth to build like a small base. So I could see even small refinery coming on board. So Misk Expanse, I can see that as a high likelihood ship coming.
Maybe even a vehicle as well.
Yeah.
I did see a comment in chat about the Jav. They said, McSkinny said, Jav will be like when the BMM comes out. No, the Jav is actually in Squadron, and it's actually functioning in Squadron. Well, after Squadron comes out, that's when it comes.
Yeah,
it's basically ready.
It's very possible. I don't think it's likely, to be totally honest with you, but it's possible that when Squadron comes out, if it still comes out this year or 2026, we could see the new exteriors or the Squadron exteriors, I should say, for the Idris and Javelin, which will sort of make those two ships feel new again. I'm speculating wildly. I hope they release it with Squadron because the Idris does look pretty bad on the exterior if you really inspect it, but we'll see. Okay, got 2 more questions, everybody. 2 more questions. First one is, is from Bunker, who says, they did say new ships from the list of manufacturers, but what about gold standards and reworks? Any speculation on updated ships next year? So essentially, you're just talking about any updated, are the gold pass or rework ships included in those list of manufacturers they talked about? I would think so, because if it was any others, it would have just been every manufacturer it's being worked on.
Yeah.
And that's specifically what we were sort of discussing with Origin. If the Origin ship being worked on is not the G12, then I highly suspect it's a gold pass on one of the existing Origin ships, personally.
They did
And
say
we already know they're doing the. Sorry, go.
they did say new ships though.
That's true. That's true.
So I don't imagine it would be a rework. That's why I think it's just the G12.
Yeah.
Yeah. And looking at reworks for RSI, you've got the we know the Aurora's getting its gold pass, and we know they're doing a rework of it to bring out a Mark II, which I really don't like the idea of.
Yeah.
That
Oh, the
just feels
Aurora
like
Mark
a
II,
rude
yeah.
money grab, but hey, that's just me.
Yeah. I'm really interested to see what the Aurora Mark II is going to look like. That's one of my top, like, big. Now that we know the Flappy Bird and what that is, now it's the Drake Clipper. Now my new big mystery is, what is the Aurora Mark II?
Look, if it's not what VMXCO set out in his concept, I say we riot.
There's going to be disappointed people. VMXCO, I think he's still in chat. VM, telling you, man, if they don't go with your concept, at the very least, if they do go with your concept, I would hope they send you a free one. Okay.
Yeah.
I would hope they do. All right, everybody. Last question, and then we're going to go over a few
Call it
things.
the Aurora V.
I like that. I like that a
Yeah,
lot.
the Aurora V.
Last question here, and I say this as last because it's concerning the best ship easily that has ever been dreamed up by CIG, so we know where this question's going. Question is, this is an easy one, is the Kraken the biggest ship we'll be able to land on planets with? Easy answer, it's currently the biggest ship we can land on a planet with. Doesn't mean it's not the
I've
only
just
one.
got to correct you though. It's not the best ship.
Ooh.
Everyone knows the Endeavour is the best ship.
See, we got two different cults going on here. We got the cult of the Kraken and the cult of the Endeavor are on this show
Well, we've got
together.
three because we've also got the cult of the Crucible, but you know.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we're going to swing our cults around, we've got more than you. No.
That's right.
That's true. That is true. That is true. Everyone, if you want to get in on the Drake Gollum game package with LTI, courtesy of CIG, I'll be giving that away next Tuesday. You can go to the Gleam link and enter that super easy.
What skin are you giving away if they're on stream?
You know, I've been thinking about that. I did pick up a couple Gollum skins, so I'll definitely be able to include a cool one. I need to think about that. Maybe they can choose. But yeah, so excited. Great ship, fun little ship. Obviously, the Gollum Ox is, I checked it out and is really badass. I'm enjoying the hell out of it. So big fan of the Gollum series. Hopefully we see more of them.
Also, for those of you that don't know, Luminalia starts tomorrow.
Starts tomorrow. Thank you. Yes, Luminalia starts tomorrow. Make sure you turn into the Advent calendar every day. I think it's every day, right? Where you can like choose a new prize. Sometimes it's like little flares. Sometimes it's skins. Stuff like that.
From tomorrow to the 22nd. So it's for 12 days.
Yeah. By the way, thank you for the follows. J-Dog, Homie, No Candle, Arcturus, Badass, DV Grim, great name. Origin Unknown, appreciate that. By the way, everybody, we are one follow away from our next follower goal. So one follower away. I don't know if it's an official goal, but to a big round number. One follower.
One follow away from 5 followers.
Jormooker just did it. All right. Thank you, Jormooker. Appreciate that. Salute. Last but not least, don't forget the show sponsors, everybody. iconcity.uk. Make sure you use the STARJUMP code. And, of course, Pigeon Spaceport. Use the STARJUMP code there as well. I should be getting one of these models for too long, but make sure you check them out. All that kind of good stuff. I'm getting my stream sponsor stuff with all the show sponsors worked up right now so that I can better represent stuff. As I did just now, I've just been sort of showing the page and mentioning it. But that is something I'm working on. And you'll have better show sponsor representation moving forward. Again, I'm going to post that Pigeon Spaceport link down in chat for you right there. All right, everybody. Execute Now Grid. Where can they find you guys? What do you have coming up next?
I'll let Ogre take this one. Then he can
Live
awkwardly
stream
promote
on,
us for a
on the
change.
weekend. So, yeah.
Oh, but
Infernus.com.
yeah. Infernus.com? What the?
Infernus, whatever we are. Infernus on Twitch and YouTube and yeah, whatever.
Wow, he's worse at this than I am. Holy shit.
Yep.
Right.
Well, you never let me do it, so I never get practice.
Yeah, that's why I threw you under the bus. I thought it'd be great just to see reaction.
Yep.
But yeah,
Evil
Infernus
bastard.
on YouTube and Twitch. You're pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. Yeah. Not 3.5 out of 10. I think it was pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good.
Make sure you
Okay.
check out the Infrunners. They do good content. One of the early StarJump supporters for sure. So out of the very, very, very few Star Citizen creators I subscribe to, Infrunners is definitely one of them. So,
Golly gosh, gee whiz.
yeah.
But thank you.
All right, everybody. Tonight we're going to raid someone I don't know if I've ever raided him actually, but we're going to send a raid his way. Make sure we go over there, throw him some StarJump love if you would. It's been great to be back on the new computer. So far, so good. Even with data transfers happening in the background, the new computer held up. So thank you all for bearing with me. I will get more shows up on the calendar tomorrow. I know there isn't any up on the YouTube coming soon thing or the Twitch calendar, but those will go up tomorrow. I've just been sort of planning subjects. We're going to have a few guests we're going to talk to soon on some specific topics. So again, thank you everybody. We're going to raid Cobra TV. So make sure you give him some StarJump love when you go over there. Execute Algrid, it's been great having you on. Hopefully have you on with video soon. Let's get that worked out. Yeah, everyone.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Been a great topic. People want to hear about this, apparently. Everyone, have a great night. Do something kind for a stranger. Nice to see you all. Sending you over to Cobra now. Enjoy the rest of your evening. All right. And to my YouTube folks,